Good evening, everyone. Good morning and good afternoon, depending on where you are. And thank you for joining me to this live stream. Let's give ourselves just a couple of seconds to make sure everything is up and running. And here we go. Thank you so much for joining me, everyone. Hope our audio is working fine. Looks like it. Okay, brilliant. Thank you for everyone who's joining. Thank you for everyone who's regular to my live stream. Our moderators, obviously. Everyone greeting. Good evening, salam, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in and for participating. Tonight, I haven't released a video before the live stream. It was too close to the live stream timing, so you will see it immediately, hopefully, after this live stream. It was not related to updates, by the way. Everything is going to be in this live stream, so it's going to be full on before I open the space for your questions, obviously. It was more to do with the resistance background in terms of religion, Islam, the ideological backgrounds, a bit of context in history, a bit of religion. So it was a generic, and I did it in a video format for everyone who doesn't usually watch live stream, because some of you demanded this from me previously, so I thought I'd do a dedicated video for that. And obviously with your contributions and your requests, I can consider obviously doing similar other videos that are not related to directly the day-to-day stuff, because there are plenty of things to discuss. That's why I do 2 videos a day. One of them is a live stream for you. But obviously I'd be happy to consider things like that in the future as well. With regards to today, very dangerous developments, primarily in Lebanon. But before I get to Lebanon, I mean, Lebanon was the highlight, okay? And things are still happening in Lebanon. But before I go to Lebanon, I want to tell you what happened in Gaza. Because obviously, I mean, yeah, you might hear a couple of things here and there, but I try and gather everything for you in terms of the resistance actions. Obviously, there's lots of things to do with the suffering of the people, you know, the hunger and the problems that they're suffering on a day-to-day basis that are highlighted to some extent, that I also talk about. It's very important, the human suffering aspect, but it's also important for you to know what's happening on the ground, on the battle, because that is what's going to write the outcome of where we are. I mean, I previously stated many times, it's the perseverance and the success of the Palestinian resistance that are going to write the outcome of this war. It's primarily that. There's obviously the perseverance and the resistance of the people in general, which is obviously a contributing factor. But if no one was fighting Israel, if no one was fighting back, if no one was defending, Israel would have gotten its way already. So let's start off with Gaza. Firstly, I spoke to you about many undetonated bombs that the resistance uses previously. In 2014, not now. Now you're talking about numbers that hardly anyone knows, including the resistance in Gaza yet, okay? But in 2014, in the 2014 escalation with Gaza, there were 300 undetonated bombs from airplanes, weighing in between 200 kg to almost a ton. Imagine what these people land on civilian buildings, and most of them are taken from civilian buildings. You've had way more bombing from Israel this time, so you have way more bombs. Hamas is using them. They've detonated one that caused massive casualties, approximately 24. Israel admitted a few months ago. That was in the near the works they were doing next to the border to cause like a line between them and Gaza. They did that back then. They did it again today. They haven't released numbers again, the resistance, but I will tell you why there is a big number of Israeli casualties in a second. They detonated, they wired a bomb that was landing from an F-16 plane in a building. And usually what they do, they act like they're not there, the resistance. They wouldn't do anything. So that Israel feels comfortable. And they go in and they explode. This is how they did it the previous time and many other times, including in Shuja'iyya earlier on in the war. They detonated it in a group of Israel, a big group of Israelis. They also had an explosive device against 7 Israeli soldiers who were severely wounded. Rockets definitely killed 4 Israeli soldiers in Khan Yunis. Tandem against a tank in South Zaytun neighborhood, Hayy Zaytun. Saray al-Quds, the armed wing of the PIJ, they sniped a soldier in Khan Yunis. Yasin 105 against the tank, Yasin 105 against the D9, Thaqib explosive barrel against the vehicle, soldiers targeted in East Gaza with direct rocket strikes, mortars in the southern part of Hayy Zaytun, and which leads me to why do we know that there are big numbers of casualties? It's because Israel used a helicopter called Yas'ur, they call it in Hebrew. Yas'ur is the Sikorsky CH-53C Stallion. Usually that's used for a very large amount of casualties when it comes to Israeli soldiers. They don't frequently use it. They also had a Black Hawk evacuating casualties. With regards to the negotiations, before I get to the negotiations, aid. So we've heard reports about, obviously, airdrop from Jordan, from France, and I previously had my input about it, about the fact that it's temporary relief. The people of Gaza need more than that. But it's coming with these international efforts just to stop this insanity from Israel. However, anyone who does that needs to be coordinating with Israel, because Israel controls the land space and Israel controls the airspace, and they control the naval entries into Gaza. So they're trying to increase it. Obviously, you have the Jordanian King Abdullah, he's pushing for it as well. But again, that's going to be temporary unless we reach a ceasefire. That will actually get the aid in most, if all parts of Gaza, but a very high emphasis on the north. You still have 700,000 Palestinians in the northern part of Gaza who refuse to flee their homes, even though they can get aid, but they know what Israel is up to. Imagine the type of people, how noble they are, and how brave they are, and how strong they are. In terms of the negotiations, we've had this American proposal, right? Israel is talking as if it's gonna go ahead, but we're not getting the same vibes from Hamas. So Osama Hamdan, the member of the political bureau who operates mostly out of Lebanon, he said that this suggestion from the US is primarily to save face and prepare the American leaders for the election. They want to show the electorate that, look, oh, we reached a ceasefire, we stopped the... So for him, it's just there to save face and, you know, get more votes. This is his main comment on this. He said that they rejected the amendments, as in Israel, the amendments that Hamas made, although from the reports that we've seen, and I can talk about them in a sec, there have been some sort of acceptance from Israel about certain things, but clearly Hamas is not happy about the level of them. Netanyahu, he also said that it's giving Netanyahu an option to continue in power. And we must note that the main thing is ending the genocide, rebuilding Gaza, lifting the siege. And then we can talk about the prisoners to them. It's about lifting the siege, ending the suffering of the Palestinian people, rebuilding Gaza, lifting the siege of Gaza after 17 years of blockade that was increased, obviously, during this genocide. So it's a marketing tool. He told the mediators, as in we, Hamas, told the mediators that the priority is a full ceasefire, getting full aid in, and that many people are starving. Now, with regards to Israel, they started to accept a couple of the things that they weren't accepting previously, and they highlighted a couple of times the aid going to the north of Gaza. Everything has limits, right, in terms of Israel, and they like to keep things open as much as possible, things being open for multiple interpretations, because they want to continue this massacre. Look, they have a plan at the end of the day. You have a psychopathic leader, an insanely radical society in general, many of them backing him. However, many in the Israeli society as well are calling to end this, obviously. To him, he just wants to pacify, really, those voices against him who have been there since the beginning of this genocide. But at the same time, show his right-wing extremist coalition that we will continue. And obviously, Itamar Ben-Gvir, for example, the national security minister, he already said, we told Netanyahu ending the war is a red line, so he knows what's going to happen if he ends the war. He's that blatant with it. So this is when it comes to Gaza and the latest updates about the negotiations. No significant process. However, Israel is playing slightly with it, moving forward ever so slightly. But again, Hamas are being very strict with the demands because they know how Israel can misinterpret and twist things in the future and go again on a full-scale war, similar to how they did many times in the past. So they're not obviously trusting them. Which leads us to Lebanon. So what's happening in Lebanon, you can safely say that it's the closest it has ever been since Hizbullah entered the battle on the 8th of October to an all-out war. They've obviously downed a Hermes yesterday, 15-meter wingspan, large UAV. Israel targeted the first missile that tried to take down the Hermes with a David Sling missile, usually intercepts land-to-air missiles, unlike normal rockets, land-to-land. That rocket costs $700,000, by the way. That system is way more expensive than using the Iron Dome. Rockets for the Iron Dome range between $50,000 to $100,000. So, total, you've had like a 3-4 million loss from Israel from that rocket. That's just that, right? They obviously targeted an area called Amek Israel, deep into the Galilee, close to Nazareth, yesterday. Today, Israel also started having deeper attacks, but Hizbullah, in total, from various reports and multiple statements, we've heard that they launched approximately 140 missiles on Israel. They heavily targeted the air command base, the northern air command base to be particular, in Har Miron or Jabal al-Jarmaq in Arabic. Israel has 2 air command bases. One of them is Miron, and the other one is in the south. The one in the north that Hezbollah targeted, it's the 3rd time they targeted it during this war, the intensity of targeting depends on the level. They initially targeted it not very heavily after the assassination of, I think his name was Wissam al-Tawil, who was a leading figure in the Ridwan force. They assassinated him very earlier on in the war. The big attack, 62 missiles that all landed, by the way, and severely caused a lot of damage, was after the assassination of Saleh al-Aruri, who is a Hamas leader, alongside a few more Hamas members, signaling that, we retaliate on behalf of Hamas as well. Shows how united the resistance is. And then we had it today. But they didn't only target that, they also targeted main Israeli base of the Golan unit in the occupied Golan Heights, Al-Julan, with 60 missiles, alongside dozens of other rockets inside of Israel. And Israel is sending more and more warnings to the population that they might have, obviously, electricity shortages, food shortages, etc. The biggest significant, also apart from the government warnings, is a manufacturers union warning you have 700 factories under imminent threat. Obviously, they will be in the fire line for Hizbullah, depending on how important they are. They told them, generators, prepare everything. There will be no electricity, no transport, and the same dangers that the population are exposed to. So they're preparing them for a total all-out war. Usually, obviously, up until a few weeks back, there was an underlying understanding, so to speak. You don't cross this much, we don't cross this much. That's being broken now. So if there was an understanding between Hezbollah and Israel, that understanding is slowly but surely being broken, not all at once, but we're seeing the steps. So it's not like one side is using an all-out force. No, but the steps that are being taken, the actions that are being taken by each side are breaking that understanding, and this signals that we're heading towards a potential all-out war, primarily also after the recent statements from Yoav Gallant, who said that both these wars are unrelated now. So even if we reach a ceasefire with Gaza, that doesn't mean we will have a ceasefire with Lebanon. Netanyahu, from his end, he said, we would like to get a diplomatic agreement and arrangement with Lebanon and Hezbollah. However, if that doesn't work, we will use other methods to get our desired results from this war on Lebanon. And now I will open the space up for your questions and contributions. If you wouldn't mind highlighting anything intended for me to answer, so we can go through them efficiently as possible. Okay. John Live. Okay, I'll go back from the bottom to the top. How many missiles hit targets? When it comes to Israel, almost all of their missiles can be precision missiles. However, we saw how they deal with their precision missiles. They have precision missiles, but look how they use them in Gaza on civilian buildings. So if they target a civilian building, they'll hit it. With regards to Hezbollah, many of their weapons are precision missiles, guided missiles, heat guided, laser guided missiles. They even have missiles that have a camera in front of them to show the target as it's hitting it. Very, very advanced missiles that were introduced during this war. With regards to the stupid missiles or the not smart or guided missiles, right? They usually use, obviously, the Katyushas, the Grads, the manufactured missiles. They have an accuracy range of, for every 10 kilometers, you have some of them, again, not all of them, and some weapons that they have for that distance are more accurate, but usually with the non-very accurate missiles, you're talking about 100-meter radius per 10 kilometers. So if they launch a missile, for example, at a target that's 40 kilometers away from the Lebanese borders, there's 400-meter range, square range, that the missile can hit. So I hope that clarifies. But in terms of capability and if they want to target specific locations, they will use more guided missiles and more accurate missiles, particularly with the sensitive areas they would like to target in Israel. Let's go to the next question. Is Mel gone? Is Shaitanyahu dragging the USA for this war? This is something that Benjamin Netanyahu has been trying to do ever since the beginning of this war. Israel tried to sell this war to Europe and to the Western world in general, that it's light versus darkness, that it's medieval times versus modernity, that it's democracy versus these dark people, that you're talking about the dangers coming at your doors. Many people in Israel will call the Western countries, some of them naive for sympathizing with the Palestinians. Now, it didn't only stop with statements. He took actions to provoke. Number one, the escalation, the level of escalation from his end with Lebanon, with targeting leaders, right, in Syria and in Lebanon, to inflammatory, his stubbornness with the agreement, his refusal to continue the temporary ceasefire that was there, that was initially the United States' hope with regards to that, and the tension started building up from the beginning. We've heard reports previously that the US and some Western countries gave them 40 days to finish Hamas off, like they said they would. And then obviously this support started to decrease bit by bit. But he has always been trying to drag the USA into an all-out war. To an extent, they have been dragged through this coalition of genocide in the Red Sea. That's number one. But with the other parts where you had US intervention, don't forget it was because of US interests rather than Israeli interests. For example, in Iraq, they had their bases attacked in Iraq. Now, obviously, you can argue, what the hell are you doing in Iraq? Get out of there, of course. But they have bases there and they were attacked. So because they were attacked, they had to intervene. They didn't intervene to the level that Benjamin Netanyahu likes. Benjamin Netanyahu wanted them to intervene way more. He wanted them to have full interference and he ideally wanted them to support Israel, support Israel. So I hope that clarifies. Obviously, the U.S. isn't playing ball completely, but yeah, he's still obviously trying. Walid Armashi is asking me a question in Arabic. Do you think Lebanon's war will be before the summer? Well, it could blow out any day. It can blow out tomorrow. These escalations that we're seeing could prompt a very big Israeli retaliation. So it could be there tomorrow, right? It could be very imminent. With regards to a ceasefire, if a ceasefire comes in, they're already saying Lebanon is excluded from the ceasefire. We're going to continue. They could be saying that as a threat, but they're saying it, which hints that they can continue with their threats. So it could escalate in any given moment, really, because the tension levels are exceptionally high with Lebanon, and both sides are increasing their attacks. Taylor Samur is asking, do you think more people will stand up because of what Aaron did on Sunday? I can see the USA mainstream media already covering it correctly and respectfully. Look, what Aaron did, you know, may Allah's mercy be upon him, is very extreme. It's the most extreme form of protest that we obviously don't encourage anyone to do, but he did it. For you to do that, you would have to have a lot of rage, anger, pain in you, which signals how much what we're seeing in Gaza is affecting us, all of us. That's why I said again, I'll reiterate again, you need to have breaks from seeing such images, because you need to remember that doesn't make you less sympathetic or less effective. As a matter of fact, it can make you more effective if you focus on your well-being as well. And these images that you're seeing on the phone are not always happening all the time. So we need to also remember that. Obviously, there's a genocide, there's an undeniable genocide, there's a war against humanity. You know what's happening. It's not like you don't know. But it's not like all of these videos you're scrolling and seeing are happening is now. Okay, that's number one. With regards to his mainstream, I mean, who's surprised about the portrayal of this man on mainstream media? Mainstream media is a government tool to manipulate you and control you, make you an idiot, ignorant fool. That's what it's meant there to do. It's made to control you, not to enlighten you. It's made to divide you, not to unite you. It's made to make it easier for those in power, not more difficult. It's made to deter criticism as much as possible, not attract criticism, whether it's constructive or non-constructive criticism. So his portrayal in the mainstream media and how well they try and hide his intent and the things that he said isn't surprising for me, or for it shouldn't be surprising for anyone for that matter. He made his statement. It's not like he didn't. In terms of its effect in the US, look, from what I'm saying, in Western countries, the most rage is coming from the US. The most brave resistance against this war in Western countries coming from the United States of America. That could be due to many reasons. Obviously, they have the aspect of the people. Some people in America might be more fiery, but it's not just that. It's also to do with the level of complicity of their government. To American people, our government is using our taxpayers' money to go and support a genocide. Now, any decent human being will be outraged by that. That's not to say that people in Britain shouldn't be outraged. Shameful to the same level. However, the complicity, the level of The level of interaction, of support, of legitimacy, of complicity, of lifeline, vetoes, all of that from the American government is bigger, right? So you already have that in America. If this might take it to another level, this might take it to another level. Um, but what's the most important thing to highlight about this is not something we want to see taking your life. You can protest. And again, I'm not judging the person. I never judge people who you don't know what's in their mind, in their heart, in their soul. It's like many people who go and commit suicide, right? You don't know what's been happening to them. You can say whatever you like, but you're not living their reality. For someone to reach that level. But what should be focused on is those criminals who enable this genocide and lead people like this man who was a member of the US Air Force, right? And he's a white white 25-year-old American male, okay? It's these enablers that we should be focusing on our energy on. Let's go to the next question. Kate. Egypt signed Gaza reconstruction in 2021. Is Saudi and UAE pressuring Egypt? Are they complicit in this genocide? Look, obviously, with regards to the reconstruction in 2021, there was an escalation. So there could have been talks about other reconstructions in 2021. Gaza's been bombed so many times previously. Like the last and only time I was in Gaza was when I was a very young boy. That was in the mid 90s. Mid 90s, not 2000, not like Hamas's days later on and the fierce resistance. Man, I remember walking in Gaza, and every time you drive next to something, there are holes in buildings, bullet holes, shell holes. Everything in Gaza beforehand has been so effective. Obviously, it's been reconstructed many times, but after the intense Israeli attacks in Gaza in following years, there were multiple back and forth reconstruction phases. Is Saudi and UAE pressuring Egypt? They could have certain pressure on Egypt with certain aspects. Um, are they complicit in this genocide? Look, it really defines on how you. It really depends on how you define complicit. If complicit means, if complicit to you and to many people it does, means you didn't stop this genocide when you have the ability to, then you're complicit. If complicit means you haven't used all of your powers to prevent them, even if it's non-military powers, you can say some of them are complicit. If you mean complicit activating, participating in the killing by supporting it, by encouraging it, then there's a different argument. Then no, because the active people who are killing are Israel. The active people supporting primarily in terms of weapons that are killing people is the United States of America and any other country supporting Israel. So I hope that clarifies. Let's go to the next question. Miguel Garcia, good question. Already some days or weeks, no hearing from the Iraqi resistance. Do you know what's going on? Yeah, clearly, excuse me, there was a deal. There was a deal between the United States potentially and the resistance movements or Iran backing them to tone it down in Iraq. They obviously tried to include Yemen with it. As a matter of fact, they've offered Yemen, Ansarullah particularly, international recognition because so far they recognize the other government and a fair bit of money. The Yemeni resistance refused. Um, did they offer something to the Iraqi resistance, or did they make a deal with Iran to tone it down with Iraq to a certain extent? We don't know, but there's clearly a deal there because they've been quiet for approximately 3 weeks. They said they will hold their attacks. Was it after they saw that the US is also raising the bar in attacking them and they had some assassinations with some of their leaders? That could also well be a contributing factor. Cyrene 16. Do you think Lebanon will win a war with the IDF? Honest answer, it's not 2006 anymore. Israel has come up with new technology. Both sides are advanced. Yes, Israel has come with new technology, primarily, obviously, intercepting the missiles, the Iron Dome. That was planned by one of Israel's previous, I think he was a defense minister called Amir Peretz. So we've seen significant advancement in Israel's anti-missile technology, obviously. That was effective to an extent. But we have seen lots of advancement from Hizbullah. Can the IDF win? We'll start off with the IDF. Can the IDF win in Gaza? This is the question. No, they're not winning. 5 months in, they're being humiliated. They're being shattered to pieces by the resistance. And the resistance in Gaza has way less capabilities, military capabilities, and not bravery of men. You know, both the Palestinian people and the Lebanese people are very brave. But when it comes to the military capabilities, Hezbollah is the most advanced armed group probably in the world that's not related to a government, not only in the Middle East. They are extremely advanced. They were attacking ships back in 2006 on live television. They have very precise missiles. They have a scary arsenal of missiles, by the way. You're talking about hundreds of thousands. They have extremely high level of experience in battle, in urban warfare, in the mountains. In 2006, they were driving Israel insane. Some soldiers who were going back from the battle in 2006 used to tell people we were fighting ghosts in Lebanon, not people, to that level, because they're camouflaged within nature and they're fighting them. That's with a ground invasion, and Israel already was humiliated with a ground invasion. In terms of destruction, we all know Israel can obviously cause a lot of destruction, like what they've done in Gaza. How effective is that destruction in stopping a resistance? It's merely an act of hate-fueled vengeance against the people to punish the people. And it's a cowardly act. It causes a lot of destruction. But it also creates a new generation of people who hate the living daylight out of you and want to end your existence. So it's a counterproductive measure from Israel. And also their military is incapable of having two all-out wars at the same time. They could potentially be reaching a deal and actually going on an all-out war with Lebanon. That's a very likely scenario. that they're preparing for, because they don't want to be dealing with Gaza when they deal with Lebanon. They'll take all of those and go to Lebanon. But that would be, look, what they're doing in Gaza is suicidal already. I mean, we're talking about the day after Israel now. If they do go to Lebanon, that's an acceleration of this suicide mission that they're on. And I think in both cases, both the Palestinian resistance and the Lebanese resistance will emerge with the upper hand and will emerge victorious. Donald Lawson, have you had any info regarding the second pen under construction in Egypt side of the border of Sinai? Egypt is already building these walls or compound to potentially deal with an influx of Palestinian refugees due to Israel bombing the border and bombing the people to push them into Sinai. That's the visible measure Egypt is taking. So they could be taking more measures in terms of physical, visible measures that are there to deter any potential action from Israel, control the influx to get the people back, or potentially to just deter Israel from the whole campaign. How effective that is? Well, so long that we're not seeing an all-out genocide campaign in Rafah, it's succeeding what the Egyptians are doing. They don't have faith in Israel. They have a peace treaty, but they don't like them, right? And they will do whatever is within their capability to prevent Israel from being there directly on that border with them, because they don't trust them, and they know Israel's intentions and plans uh, historically and in the contemporary um, plans as well. I had another question from Philip Kuz asking something similar, but which will be controlled by Israel. I don't think that Egypt will allow any sort of Israeli control in Sinai whatsoever. To the contrary, what we've seen in the past years is that Egypt is increasing its military force in Sinai. That all goes against the Camp David Accords. They have a problem with Israel being in any part of Gaza. They have a very big problem with them being on the border with Rafah, let alone, but Israel in Sinai is an open war. DL Sendero, a question, Mahmoud. I have seen Palestinians produce some products for exports like olive oil. How does that work with Israel? Do they get a big cut? And is it helpful for the cause to buy such products? If the product, you're definitely sure that it's Palestinian or not Israeli, then it helps the people who buy it. In terms of exportation, if they're exporting it through Israel, in many cases they will, there will be probably some sort of fees that Israel takes from them. You need to bear that in mind. But obviously, you'd want to do that than buy an outright Israeli product, obviously. Munana, any further news on Ansar Allah cutting 4 internet cables in the Red Sea from yesterday and attack by Iran in the Straits of Hormuz? Nothing more significant. The latest images we've seen is actually one of the ships that they targeted sinking even further. So the stubbornness of this genocide coalition is causing the Yemenis to use more force against them, and now they're taking down some of their ships. The solution is for this genocide coalition to leave that place and actually stop the support for Israel. If they want to take any action, let them take it against this genocidal state. But I will obviously be updating on any significant updates from Yemen too. Gafsa 53, Mahmoud, what do you make of the resignation of the PAPM Shtiye? Not very significant. We spoke about it a little bit yesterday. Shtiye has been there already for 5 years approximately. He's been before coronavirus came. Usually they sometimes change their roles before this period, so it's like he was due almost anyway. The act isn't very significant because Mahmoud Abbas is still there, Abu Mazen, the president, and he controls the show. It's not like the Prime Minister of Israel versus the President of Israel, where the Prime Minister has more powers than the President. It's the President in the Palestinian Authority who has more, if you want to call them powers, right? Powers so long as Israel approves them, really. It's not that significant. It could potentially be linked to a potential solution after um, a potential ceasefire comes into play, and contribute to Hamas potentially playing ball more with the Palestinian Authority. If you want to hear, like, in terms of the Palestinian Authority, the most significant thing they can do is tell you we've X'd the Oslo Accords, for example. They did say we cut the security ties with Israel previously, but that was just talk. That wasn't implemented really. If they want to do something, they would say Oslo Accords are no longer viable. Israel is an occupation. We're on an occupied land, and we're backing the resistance. For example, it's legitimate under international law. so, so the armed resistance thing, by the way, although it expands bigger than this real, but in terms of international law, in Gaza and the West Bank, you're protected by international law if you want to follow international law, because we've seen what this international law does really or does not do mostly. But it's not something very significant, and we haven't seen any statements or anything of the sort to say that look, oh, that's a big change and something's happening potentially related to a potential unity government after the war. Antonia PI, is Lebanon ready for an all-out war? Mahmoud, how far do you think they are able to go in terms of taking back land and taking on the IDF? Look, the Palestinian resistance and the Lebanese resistance, they always prepare for war with Israel. I mean, so long as Israel exists, to them there's reason for resistance, so we constantly prepare for the next war and potentially the big war and the liberation war. So in terms of preparation, they're prepared. They're prepared. How far do I think they are able to go in? Look, Hizbullah might have massive surprises for all of us. We've already had invasions in the Galilee during this war. Some people say they have tunnels that stretch way beyond these areas. But regardless, really, they would put up a very difficult fight for the IDF. The IDF will cause destruction in Lebanon, but Hezbollah will cause way more destruction than they have ever against Israel, and they will be potentially showing us a lot of surprises. Majid Hamdan, is it true Jordan, Egypt, Qatar, UAE, and France conducted airdrops on the Gaza? If so, is this sustainable work to work around the line of trucks waiting to get in? The ones I heard, unless I didn't hear everything, were Jordan and France. Jordan having three yesterday, France having one. This obviously needs to be coordinated with Israel. You're not talking about something sustainable unless you're talking about exceptionally large numbers and airplanes flying throughout the day. They drop them in random places. You don't have the logistics to support them down there. Poor people would have to go and find whatever they can find, and first come, first serve. So you still need aid through the land. However, that does give temporary relief. Any temporary relief is good, but it's not something very sustainable. The thing that everyone should be focusing on is forcing this criminal state to end this genocide and open the borders. Monk Matt, I will speak only for myself as an American. We were fooled into fighting a war in Iraq on behalf of Israel. I know a number of US soldiers died there wondering what they were fighting for. Yeah, I mean, that really resonates with many other people who spoke about it. Lots of American soldiers, and some soldiers here in Britain too. Israel wanted to retaliate for Saddam attacking it in the early 90s with lots of missiles. Like Saddam did a lot of, I remember those periods, I was really young. He did a lot of damage, and Israel wanted to get rid of him. An army that dares to attack Israel with a country, no, they shouldn't exist. And obviously the US came up with this false flag 9/11, sold the people this idea, went to war, weapons of mass destruction, a lie, a big, massive lie that was debunked from the early days. And they get away with it. And they use soldiers as cannon fodder. Usually they're young, easily manipulated. Some of them have good intentions. Some of them don't get me wrong. And they use them as cannon fodder. They come back with PTSD. 20 a day, the last statistic that I heard, commit suicide on a daily basis in America. And addicted to opioids and epidemics. Great business for the military-industrial complex and the pharma cartel. But I'm sure many share your view as well. And thanks for that. Okay. Thank you for all of the new members and anyone sending supers, by the way. I apologize if I'm unable to address all of them. Okay, let's go to the next question. Rock Black CHF, thank you. And you said, what is the solution? Salam, what is the solution? How to solve this issue? Well, you solve it simply by having equality. That's the shortest answer. You would have prevented it from happening if you had equality in rights. So, and when we say equality in rights, if the Palestinians had equal rights to Jewish Israelis, if Palestinian refugees were allowed to go back to their land, similar to how foreign Jewish people who have never been to the land are able to, if they had the same rights in terms of freedom of movement, in terms of political participation, decision making, in terms of the country, if you had equal rights, if you had truly equal rights, then you wouldn't have had big problem. But obviously that's so far stretched, right? You're so far from equality. When it comes to this war, how do we solve it now with this issue? Obviously, you continue battling this genocide, exposing it to the world in terms of us, anyone who can talk, anyone who can participate, people individually protesting, all of this activity, to put pressure on decision makers to at least stop being complicit with this. In terms of the Palestinians, obviously, each Palestinian, each area, they know what they need to do. Like Palestinian resistance in Gaza, that's their obligation and priority to resist this genocide as much as possible and continue to resist it until they expel the occupier. If there's anyone sane in the Israeli leadership, they know that the only long standing viable solution really is to have equality of rights for the Palestinians. I mean, we've been talking for over 30 years about a Palestinian state, nothing's come to light. The Palestinian Authority in the West Bank, after the Oslo Accords, they've had 30 years of negotiation and non-violent, supposedly, route. We saw where that led to. What does this leave the average Palestinian under occupation with, who has seen nothing but oppression, brutality, occupation, racism, hatred, revenge, vengeance, stealing, crops, land, destroying homes, filling water wells with cement to prevent people from drinking, having checkpoints every few meters in the West Bank, having to take 5 hours to reach a place where it would take them half an hour or 20 minutes if they didn't have checkpoints. This reality is intolerable. And resistance is the only way, really. You can't like accept that. And even if they say like they're fine or whatever, they'll still have these brutal forces next to them and these racist, hideous people living next to them, stealing their land and annoying them, protected by the supremacist state, right? In terms of the countries, they need to completely isolate Israel. Israel needs to be completely isolated as a country. A blockade, enforcement of the blockade, it's a genocidal state, it's a lunatic regime, and it must be isolated completely. Total blockade, stopping any full embargo, including having forces outside the country. But hey, look, the all contrary is happening. The supposedly enlightened countries are supporting them to the T, and they're demonizing the Palestinians and their resistance. Why? Because they probably share the same values with them, the same ideologies. How many people in Western governments declare openly that they're Zionists? Something which should be outrageous, by the way. It's like, oh, I follow this ideology. What ideology? The ideology of supremacy, that I'm better than other people, that I can occupy them and kill them and steal their land. They openly declare and they get away with it. So they'll, in America, for example, look, they'll question they'll question executives in Chinese companies or whatever. Oh, not even Chinese companies all the time. Foreign companies. Do you work for the government? What do you do for the government? This and that. Have you had interest? Right, Russia. There's always problems with them, but they're infiltrated by the Zionist lobby. But AIPAC buys their politicians. But their presidents are compromised. Same in the UK. Agents for Israel and for the Zionist movement. You've had many previous reports and undercover investigative journalists exposing the Zionist lobby in Britain, for example. Yet as if nothing happened, you know. It goes away. They fool the people. They don't focus about it a lot. You know, people apathetic, couldn't care less, and goes on. So now, though, people are speaking up more and more about it, and you need to continue the action from anyone with any possibility, right? Any ability to do anything should be doing it. And again, I always say, don't undermine anything that you do, whether it's talking, sharing, posting, liking, participating in conversations such as this. All of this is very, very important in general. Okay, let's go to the next one. Um, HA, do you think Netanyahu is going to accept a ceasefire for the period of Ramadan, then start the massacre again after Ramadan? Look, they couldn't care less about Ramadan. That's number one. They actually started wars in Ramadan before and Eid or whatever. In terms of Netanyahu, he wants an agreement that will be open for at least an interpretation from Israel's side that they can continue this war following any temporary ceasefire and any prisoner exchange and enable them to continue. That's what he really wants, but he couldn't care less um, about Ramadan. Brahim, thank you so much. Habibi bro, is Israel attacking Lebanon? Do you think other countries will intervene and help Lebanon? Salam from Sweden. Much salam back to Sweden and all of the countries. I don't think we will see a direct intervention to help Lebanon. What we might see is some actions potentially from Russia primarily because they are very close there. So when you're talking about Lebanon and Syria, firstly, these are areas with traditionally more French uh, interference rather than American British. Following from the Sykes-Picot Agreement, France took the northern part of Upper Palestine. The British took they sat down and they drew lines. Oh yeah, you control this, I control that. How about that? And then they started drawing maps. Oh yeah, let's give that to them. And then without taking anything into context, not history, not people, nothing. Typical colonialism. But you'll have other countries interested and concerned about what's happening. Primarily Russia, having we could see Russia having some actions to try and deter Israel, similarly to what they did in Syria. Okay. Let's go to the last couple of questions if you have any here. Laureen Delperdange. Why is there not a protection plan for the children of Gaza? Because the people conducting these massacres are targeting children. So Israel, before they went into this genocide, they've already justified killing children. So you've had decision makers saying they are human animals. You've had previous leaders in the army who participated saying kill all of them, including their children and pregnant women. You've had Netanyahu quoting Amalek, a verse from the Bible, killing children, women, infants, animals, everything. You have intellectuals on live Israeli television saying the babies of Gaza are the enemy. You have intellectuals and politicians and writers and thinkers in Israel saying that Gaza children should starve, they should drink sewage water, and that all of them are, they want to kill us, and all of these things. So it's important to know that, to establish an understanding as to why they're doing it. Before any genocide campaign, you have to legitimize it. Usually that happens by portraying the people who you are fighting as subhuman, dehumanize them, demonize them, label them as something to create a justification in the eyes of the masses, at least your population, although that's being done in many Western countries too, against these people to try and kill them. That's why it's happening. And if you're talking that these people are implementing it at that level, how can there be protection for children? So when they started attacking, they took the children to refugee places. Israel was attacking refugee trucks holding children, taking them to safe havens. They were some of the most atrocious images any human being can see. They were recorded live. Bombed a truck, open truck, full of children, and their bodies were being shattered. Bombing hospitals with children sheltering. Bombing churches with children sheltering. Bombing every safe zone. Why do they do that? Because of their ideology, because of who they are. You're talking about evil-rooted people. You're not talking about normal, average human being here. It's past that. Anyone who can do that to a child deliberately is evil, by true evil, right? A representation of evil. And they have power, and they're lunatics, and they're psychopaths, and they're being supported by who? By the United Kingdom, by America, by the EU, right? Most of the governments, obviously. Okay, let's try and see. Horacio Spinelli, thank you, and I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. Yvonne Khan, hi. There is very little news on Yemen. Are there lots of casualties after the bombings? There weren't many reports of many casualties, as in civilian casualties, after the bombings so far. We hope that there won't be. However, that doesn't make the bombings less shameful, really. You know, this genocide coalition going there to support a country trying to impose a blockade and an embargo on a genocide state. That's why we call it a genocide coalition. And trying to protect their money, their interest, over trying to protect tens of thousands of people from being killed, misplaced, and being starved to death. It just shows you who these countries are, really, and how are they run, and what are their priorities. And that's not something to worry Palestinians, by the way, or Yemenis. That's something to worry about worry the British people here, to worry the American people, and to worry anyone who has a participating government in this coalition of shame, the genocide coalition. And hopefully we won't hear too many casualties. But look, the Yemeni Ansarullah, they're not backing down. That's the least we can say. They're not phased by what's happening. So what do you think you're going to do with them? Do you know what I mean? A real-life Somalilander. Mahmoud, why does the US administration systematically send African Americans to make shameful decisions at the United Nations Security Council? Similar to why Britain will have British Indians and darker skinned people in the Home Office and leading the country to supposedly show, oh no, it's a minority person there, right? We couldn't care about their color or their skin. We care about what they do. I don't sympathize with you because you're ethnic minority. I wouldn't justify what you're doing, right? And to obviously make it less look less than like it's a supremacist, typical right white people doing this. They obviously want to pacify it, right? But it's a stupid attempt, really. We can see through all of this nonsense. I couldn't care less. When you can go bring a Palestinian to go support Israel or whatever, they'll use lots of Arabs, right, to try and sell Hasbara. Do you think you can fool us? I couldn't care less who you are, what's your color, and what's your religion. I don't care. I care about what you do. Any hand raised to veto is a bloody hand. A veto to stop to oppose a ceasefire, to oppose a genocide. That's a bloody hand. I don't care where it came from, right? So they try and do it to make it look less like it's white supremacists against the world, right? Because look, they try and get away with it by saying, look, there's no supremacy in this, there's no racism, there's no Islamophobia. Even if you told them racists, they'll tell you, oh, Islam is not a race, ignoring, obviously, the discrimination part. But again, look, actions speak louder than words. We don't care who's in power. Barack Obama, what didn't he commit massacres when he was there? Right? Didn't he have illegal assassinations abroad? The guy who used most drone assassinations that are illegal across the world, against some of them against American citizens illegally. That doesn't change anything of the actions themselves, and it's a pathetic attempt. Because if like all of them are, one color, one tone, you'll think, oh my God. But in a way, it's good that they do that. Like if you ask me, because it will highlight to people that it's not about that. Like it's not about that really. You'll have white people supporting Palestine, Christian people supporting Palestine, non-religious people, and you'll have the opposite. You'll have some Arab states or Muslims standing with Israel, although a minority, right? I care about your actions, and I think many people can really see through that. But it's a pathetic attempt from these people. Zaid Sayed, in this escalating more, will Hizbullah, if Hezbollah took the Golan Heights, will the UN, ICJ, ICC rule in Lebanon's favor, or will Hezbollah have to give it back to the oppressor? Well, if Hezbollah take the Golan Heights, it's not technically for Lebanon, it's technically for Syria, so it's a Syrian matter. If they want to take it and hand it back to Syria, and Syria will tell you, okay, now I have it, Israel has no standing. But I don't think Hezbollah is going to do that on behalf of Syria unless there's a complete mutual agreement with regards to the Golan Heights, because don't forget the Golan Heights, there was definitely some sort of an understanding about them. Because when Iraq supported Syria in its 1973 war, the Iraqi army was almost in Tiberias. And they got an order from who was the defense minister, I think at the time, Hafez al-Assad, who was later the president, to withdraw, right? And they weren't happy with them, the Iraqi army, the Ba'ath party back then. They told them, why are you not allowing us to take the Golan Heights? Yours, we're here to help you. So clearly there was some sort of a deal. What, Syria had 50 years to gain the Golan Heights back, right? The Egyptians took Sinai back fairly quickly. Hezbollah and the Lebanese and the Palestinian resistance in Lebanon, they kicked out the Israeli occupation from many parts of Lebanon, and then they finished off, freeing, liberating these lands in 2000. You still have obviously Shib'a farms that are still, but the Golan would have to have Syria in it. In terms of the standing internationally, look, the standing internationally, I don't know how much it matters. We Palestinians have been seeing this all throughout history. How many resolutions does the UN have to support a Palestinian state? The right for refugees to return. So many things against Israel, hailing and supporting the resistance, calling the Palestinian Intifada brave and hailing it. All ink on paper, right? All ink on paper. I mean, the only thing the ICJ is doing now is creating a sense of fear with other countries. Countries are reluctant in dealing with Israel. It's expanding the embargo, right? Israel is a rogue state now. It's secluded bit by bit. No one likes it, not even its closest allies, because they make themselves untenable. I mean, they're doing everyone a favor, really. I mean, and some people in Israel are saying that Netanyahu and his crew, it's as if they were put there by the enemies to make Israel completely roasted, right? To completely eliminate the country, because this is what they're doing. And guess what? It's better for everyone, for them to actually say things as they are. It's worse when you have governments who speak nicely and softly and act all, and then go do things behind everyone's back. Who was enabling the settlement enterprise for the past 30 years? Okay, partially Benjamin Netanyahu, all right, because he's been there for 15 years now. But before him, what were all of them these extremist governments and stuff? No, but they were enabling an illegal settler establishment in the West Bank. They were protecting radical supremacists and acting and talking about peace. And now they're saying it as it is, saying exactly who they are, how their country was established. They're, like I said it previously, they've done what no other pro-Palestinian campaign has done ever, right? Israel, by doing all of these atrocities. They've created so much awareness by continuing this genocide that no one likes them really now. People took a 180, but like 2-3 weeks in. Okay, I mean, obviously we stood with the Palestinian side from the get-go, with the resistance from the get-go, regardless of all of the fear campaigns and all of this nonsense that was being published on mainstream media. Couldn't care less about it because we know what's happening, when we know what's been happening, right? But then people started saying, oh, hold on a second. Oh, is that why they're fighting Israel? Is it because they were doing this before? Oh, yeah, this is why. Okay, good. Now you know. We knew this before, right? But Israel is now exposing it to everyone. Sometimes by simply seeing their actions, you know everything of what they're doing. So yeah, I mean, obviously I deviate a little bit from the question, but there's so much to talk about really, but I hope that clarifies. Muhammad Zafar, are there US soldiers fighting for Israel? The dual nationals. So many Israelis are dual nationals. Some of them will have a British passport, a US passport. They need to have a backup because they know it's a failed state that's doomed. But but American boots on ground, like American country, American nationals. Look, we had a couple of reports about foreign speakers, right? But then again, they could be some of those dual nationals. That's number one. Officially, no one was there. In the beginning of the war, we've heard about Delta Force unit participating with an Israeli force to attempt an invasion. Two invasions, actually. One of them from the eastern Gaza border and one of them from the sea. And there were reports that all of them were killed at the time. Obviously, think about it this way. There aren't sufficient reports to prove a big foreign massive presence. We wouldn't be surprised if there are a few here and there. But think about it this way. If active duty soldiers, if reservists in Israel are refusing to serve, what is the foreigner going to come and do? Fight for a country that doesn't want to fight for itself? So much lack of distrust within the Israeli army, in the army leadership, in Benjamin Netanyahu, in the political leadership, in the state as a whole. They'd love to portray things differently, but they know the score. They killed their soldiers. They killed their prisoners in Gaza. They killed over 80 prisoners in Gaza. They killed dozens of soldiers. There was a statistic in Israel that 1 out of 5, and that was very conservative, of the Israeli soldiers killed in Gaza were killed due to friendly fire, right? There were blatant assassinations of Israeli soldiers to kill resistance movement leader, like Ahmad al-Ghandur's case, where they uh, threw a gas bomb in a tunnel, killed him with 3 other Israeli soldiers that I spoke about a long time ago. Um, so all of these things, like what, are foreigners going to come to fight for this failed state, for this criminal genocidal state, especially with its image now? I don't think so. I don't think so. Okay, let's go to the next question. HA, thank you so much. Okay, one question. Okay. Kwame, how did they manage to keep the killed and injured IOF a secret with no TikTok posts from the hospitals? I'm sure Istiel don't want to show their loss. Excuse me. Look, they... Okay. When they evacuate both killed soldiers and casualties, they evacuate them in mass, okay? So many of the injured will go with the bodies to the hospital. So they took them away. Unless the resistance have made such a massive blow that destroyed the whole building, that it was just non-avoidable that everyone died, and they confirm it, and they know, and they showed images, that's the proof that they have for killing them. Israel will usually admit it following that. But with regards to the people that their soldiers that they evacuate from Gaza, we look at it from what they released or what's been leaked. So there were multiple leaks from Israeli hospitals previously, about tens of thousands, right? Recently, we've had this alarming report being leaked from Israel about 30,000 disabled soldiers. Not injured, disabled. Okay. If you have 30,000 disabled soldiers, how many injured soldiers do you have? That's one question. Let's say, for argument's sake, double that, okay? 60,000. If you have 60,000, we're just being conservative here, and based on leaks from Israel, how many are dead then? Again, urban warfare, typical statistics is 1 per 3. 1 killed, 3 injured. And you have an abnormal urban warfare, by the way, with destroyed buildings. So the casualties, the number of dead soldiers could be way higher than a traditional urban warfare. You could be talking about 2 per 3, I don't know. However, let's take 1 per 3. What's 1 per 3 when it comes to 60,000? It's 20,000. 20,000. And that number is very, very likely. But it will, it'll mostly be revealed after it, because then, both parties, Israel won't release the full, so that, like America didn't publish the full statistics with Iraq, by the way. Like, they admitted in a total about 5,000 in general, but we've heard from the confirmed videos from the Iraqi resistance back in 2008 that they killed 32,000. So they would always keep it on, because the morale, the criticism, was it worth it? Was it not worth it? What are you doing already? Because it's an unjustified war already. But we will potentially know more after the war as well, apart from these rough estimates, when the resistance publishes more figures with regards to the level of the damage. Deep diver. Don't Israelis protest Netanyahu's son being in Florida while they are getting forced to join the war? Oh, they were criticizing him from the beginning. There were images about him from the beginning. As a matter of fact, some people suspect that he went abroad knowing that there's a potential war coming. They weren't also outraged by the fact that he's in Miami, you know, bathing, and they're outraged by the fact that he's protected 24/7 by their money, by taxpayers' money, right? He needs to be protected. They were outraged by another thing, by the fact that he requested a diplomatic passport, um, his son. And obviously people rejected it. It's like, your son wants a diplomatic passport. He's at an age where he can join the army, and he's sitting in Miami and he wants a diplomatic passport. You're not setting an example, but they did speak, and they still do speak a lot about it in Israel. Uh, okay, let's go to the next input. Gerardo Cantu, thank you. And everyone sending supers. um, Number 5 is alive. I listened to Nurit Peled today, Israeli Jewish scholar and mother of child killed a Palestinian suicide bomb. She supports a free Palestine and blames Israeli occupation for her child's death. I think Nurit is the sister of Miko Peled, a very brave Israeli activist who was in the army, who was on the top unit armies. He has a book called The General's Son. His dad was one of the biggest generals in the 1967 war, who then turned a very vocal peace activist. And yeah, she is also against the war. There are many cases of like that in Israel. You need to know that. And yeah, I mean, you have lots of these cases, but Nurit is a very um, uh, prime example. I'm not sure. I don't remember the names correctly, by the way. Don't get me wrong, though. But I'm definitely sure she's related somehow to Miko Peled, whose dad was Mati Peled, and he has a very interesting book about their change from obviously serving in the army and being this home that was surrounded by people who founded Israel. I mean, Benjamin Netanyahu was in his house as well, and then they turned to very vocal peace activists, despite the fact that they had lots of criticism surrounding them. Thank you for everyone sending greetings, by the way, and sorry if I'm unable to respond to all of them. Just trying to um, get to the questions before we wrap up. Okay. Donna, have you heard the news regarding 200 people kidnapped from Nasser hospital? It's not the first time. How many people they kidnapped previously? Tortured them, right? And there are so many. That's normal for Israel. very many people are they don't know their whereabouts, and there is risk of them using them to harvest organs and stuff. We wouldn't be surprised. Marvin Vergus, are there Arab billionaires that openly support Palestinians or are trying to help Palestinians? What Arab nations would help in the formation of Palestine? Syria, Egypt, Jordan. Um, Depends on how you describe openly support Palestine. Like, see, you have Arab billionaires who will talk about the Palestinian cause, not in a very very direct manner. In terms of what Arab nations can do in the formation of Palestine, they can do a lot. They can do a lot. As a matter of fact, Israel was wary of a project long back of Arabs buying land in Israel, which is what some of the Zionists used to do, buying land for Jews before the formation of Palestine. And to them, that was a risk that, okay, hold on a second, what if we form a state and then they start buying more lands and then they control it? But in the formation of Palestine, they can support a lot. They can support financially, they can support with so many things. But that's if we speak of a Palestinian state next to Israel, if that's what you're referring to. But even if we talk about like one state, for example, number one, they will have relations automatically because so many Arab nations don't have official relations with Israel because of their occupation of Palestine and the lack of equality and stuff. But they have they can support a lot, to be honest with you. And Marvin, thank you so much. We so appreciate your work, candor, honesty, peace. Thank you so much. And to all of you, all of the input. And Lisa Onofre, thank you so much. Sorry if I mispronounced that. Thank you very much. Okay. Is it true most settlements were built during Ehud Barak term? The settlements are an ongoing, expanding thing. So obviously they started to build settlements from 67. That's if we're referring to settlements as settlements in the West Bank and Gaza, the 1967 settlements. So they started building settlements from back then. Every Israeli prime minister supported the settlement establishment. There was no Israeli prime minister that outright said, I'm against settlements, I'm going to just take them down. Obviously, the only prime minister who, Ehud Barak, they had a lot in his era, but Ehud Olmert also had a lot in his era, and in Rabin's era as well, despite the fact he was close to a deal. But there was obviously talk about some settlements being Jewish majority areas in a Palestinian state with some sort of autonomy. There have been talks about that. The only prime minister who dismantled the settlement was Sharon, obviously, but only in Gaza unilaterally. But that was a malicious attempt to split Gaza and the West Bank. But all of them supported, all of them. Shannon, thank you. And Shane F, thank you so much. Let's go to... Douglas Boone. Is a two-state solution possible? If all is Palestine, what happens with the millions of Jews who live there? Look, in theory, many things are possible, right? You can have a solution with a two-state, with the settlers. You need to do something with the refugees that will be acceptable by everyone. But it's not a viable, long-lasting solution. And you have a big argument that it's not implementable now. because of how far Israel is in the West Bank, the lack of Israeli genuine will to have a Palestinian state, and its lack of inclusion of mainly the Palestinian refugees. You need to remember, with regards to Palestine, the right of return is one of the holiest rights. People who were expelled from their homes in 1948 and 1967. Where were they expelled from? Modern day Israel, historical Palestine. They were expelled from Haifa, they were expelled from Yafa, Al-Lid, Al-Ramli, Bi'r al-Saba', Bisan, all of the places, right? If you have a two-state solution, why do you want to take them to the West Bank? I wasn't born in the West Bank. They would want to return to Israel. Israel will have a problem demographically. Right? That's why we promote a one-state solution, a one-state equality, right? Supremacists who don't like it, get the hell out. Well, I don't care what you like or don't like. We want equality. If you don't like it, go somewhere else. Go to an island, implement equality on you and your clan. But if we have a one state, what happens to Jews who live there? Obviously, equal residents, like everyone, like they always were in history before this supremacist, violent ideology of Zionism came to life. Jews and Christians and Muslims were living there peacefully. This is what we advocate for. A one state where everyone can live in peace. Israelis, Palestinians, Jews, Arabs, Muslims, Christians, atheists, non-religious people, with equal rights, right? To be fair, this whole idea like of a state having a religion, think about it for a second. Does a state get up and pray or go what does this? It's land, it's stones, right? The people have religion, okay? So this emphasis on a state having a religion, right? There's an argument here to an extent of why should it have a religion? A state should respect people's rights, give them, it should have obligations towards the people living in it, should have a system implemented to protect people's rights, right? If you talk about Palestine historically, the Muslims had their rights, the Christians had their rights, the Jews had their rights. They were praying everywhere, the Jews, with the Muslims. Who were they praying with? But then you had this Zionist ideology saying, no, historical rights. God promised this us. Get out of here. We were here 2,000 years ago, 3,000. A way older promise than you. We were here before you. Stupid argument, really. A state should protect its citizens. It should give them equal rights. Rocks and stones, they don't pray. It's a land, for heaven's sake. And, you know, God created all of this world and universe for us to share it and enjoy it and open the borders and free and go back and forth. But when you have the greedy people who only seek power and control and money over the lives of people, you create Israel. You create this supremacist ideology, this zealous approach, racism, obviously. But that's what will happen with the one state. Really, a one state where everyone lives in equally. This is what we call for and promote. Okay, let's go to the next question. Imran, a very nice question. How close is Israeli society from imploding within itself? Look, Israel is in a very, very tough situation. Before this war, before this war, it had massive problems when it comes to the judicial reform, right? Um, it was already being split. It was already divided to a very large extent. You had people against the government. You had frictions in politics, frictions in society. You already had people calling to not serve in the army back then, right? Um, Now it's far worse. It's far you can say that it already started, and it's being done. It's implemented. It's something that's happening. It's not close to it. It's happening, in my opinion. Some damage that Israel has done to itself is irreparable. It has already done. The people who no longer believe in Israel from within Israeli Jewish society are a very, very large number. That's why we have so many people fleeing Israel. And that's why there's so many problems now. So many problems. So it's already happening. It's just that you obviously don't see. Look, if all of the division that's happening in Israel, all of the problems that are happening in Israel are highlighted, you'd think, what the hell what the hell are we seeing in front of us, and how is anyone supporting them, and why isn't there taking over this regime? And you would say all of that. They obviously want to protect it. What Israel's main allies, are trying to do are save Israel from itself. But they can't save Israel from itself. Because if you're a country that's established on this violent supremacist ideology, you will eat yourself up. Like the Zionist movements, the Zionist militias pre-1948, they were fighting between them. By the way, not many people know that. They were fighting on who controls what. No, this is our territory, this is your territory. And now they've reached a level of arrogance and blindness that they're eating themselves from within. So it's already happening. A Red Gorilla, thank you so much for this. Mahmoud, have you heard that Anat Swartz, the New York Times journalist, outed as ex-IBF intelligence that wrote the Hamas rape story? I actually haven't heard that. Thank you for bringing this to my attention. But, I mean, what's surprising about that, to be honest with you? All of the initial lies, babies beheaded, rape, unsubstantiated lies, propaganda spins made to give Israel a carte blanche, a full authority to go on a massive killing spree. They repeated it. They had to retract from it at certain points, but they repeated it 24/7. Even in Israel, you talk about it. Yet, that's the thing. When you blow the headlines, you've done the effect. This is how it works, ladies and gentlemen. When you talk about newspapers and headlines, people see the headline. What's the headline? What's the headline? 40 beheaded babies. That's it, stuck in people's head. Do you think most people are intelligent enough to question it? Most people, let's be frank, they're not that... let's not start off with most people. And what? Who would question it and go and try and authenticate it, right? Look further, read the bloody article and not just the headline. Who would do that? Not many people. So they make the effect. They make the effect like they made many other effects previously. They just constantly bomb the living daylight out of you with headlines that resonate in your head, And you don't question, you think, oh, I don't know what to make out of it. Um, and that's how it works. That's why I boycott mainstream media. I'm done with them. I could care less about them. I don't want to even give you a click. I don't want to even look at you, right? I'm done with them. It's only manipulation, lies, propaganda, acting as a tool in the hands of the powers to control you and manipulate you. I'm not there. Thank you very much. I'm done with them. And that's not surprising. And they do it to this day. Spinning, deflection, lies, blatant lies, manipulation. Khalid Razak, thank you so much. Let's go to last couple of, and anyone sending supers, by the way, and all of the contributions, thank you very much for this. Let's okay, I have an interesting one here. Okay. Sorry for the mispronunciation. I already think I'm gonna mispronounce this, but Zaphod Bibelrock. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Could a two-state solution be a way towards a one-state? That's very interesting. Look, in an ideal world, let's say the Israelis, you have a reasonable leadership. The Palestinians, you can give and take with them. Leadership, I'm talking politically. Both sides agree, okay, let's have a two-state solution. But both of us have to compromise. We'll compromise on certain things for the prospect of an ongoing solution. Then you have a peace treaty, you have normalization, you have good relationship, you have historical rights for some of the refugees or whatever. The refugees is going to be a big problem, by the way. Right of return. Then the situation improves to a level where both countries are tied economically, they're visiting each other regularly, they have their independent state, they recognize each other, there's all of that. And then they decide, let's unite the country. The United States of Israel and Palestine. Canaan, okay? Whatever it is, it's possible. How do you reach there, though? You reach there by paving the way to it. If there was any paving way to it, that way has been blocked 30 years ago. There was a way being paved during Yitzhak Rabin, the Israeli prime minister who was assassinated during that time. Why was there a way? During that era, Israelis were protesting in their hundreds of thousands, calling for peace. There was a sense of hope. We're finally going to reach a solution. Palestinians are finally going to have a state. We're going to withdraw from these occupied territories. And we're going to have good relations with each other. There was a vibe that's being promoted, that's being pushed. Because don't forget, things don't come like that. You can't just tell a nation that's been brought up on hate and extermination of the others for all of their life. Hold on a second, they're your brothers and sisters now. You need a bit of a process. That's why, like in my book, I also spoke about re-education. It's very important. It could definitely, but unfortunately, Israel hasn't been brought up like that, and Zionism as an ideology didn't have that reform, that upgrade. To say that we have a neo-Zionism, for example, or post-Zionism. Okay, we've had Zionism to establish Israel. We realize that it's not getting us anywhere. All of it's done is brought chaos and havoc and racism and division and wars. But we're here now. Hey, let's think of another ideology. right? Anyone with a sound mind would say that, because you can't take yourself too seriously. You shouldn't take yourself too seriously, or your ideology and stuff. And the same way you learn, you need to unlearn. Everyone, well, not just Zionism or whatever. As human beings, to have an open mind that's functioning and dynamic. You need to learn, unlearn, do, undo. You need to accept the fact that you might have been believing things that were wrong in your life, even though you might think you're on the right path and you have the right religion and all of that and ideology. How do you create that? You create that by starting to spread it more and more. You know, he talks about re-education of Gaza, Benjamin Netanyahu, right? He dares to speak about de-radicalizing. The only thing that needs to be radicalized is your genocidal state. That's what needs to be de-radicalized and re-educated. What are you talking about, de-radicalizing Gaza? De-radicalizing people you kill? It's like de-radicalizing a woman that's been raped for 20 years for beating her rapist. What de-radicalization are you talking about? You de-radicalize the killer, the oppressor, the radical person. What you've been doing with the Palestinians for the past 75 years is giving them, feeding radicalization, feeding uh, love for resisting you and actions against you because they've seen nothing good from you. Or what do you expect? Them to love you or bow down to you? Right? Um, in an ideal world, look, why, even though I've never believed personally two states, right? But in an ideal world, if that were to be the case, and there could be something, why not? It's great, great. And then we'll talk more, people will visit each other, and you'll start have a re-education program, you'll have economic ties, political ties, right? And then you'll form federal unity, or a united government, a united state, which would be a great idea. Great idea. I mean, eventually, ideally, we would want it to reach a one state that implements equality for everyone. Okay. I like this. Stay blessed, Mahmoud. You are a spiritual diplomat sharing the truth. It's the first time I hear that. Thank you for that. A spiritual diplomat. I like the title. I think I should use it on the channel. The spiritual diplomat. Angela Brody, also thank you for your membership and for your kind words. HA, thank you. Are there so many Arab leaders that doesn't express nothing or putting pressure on Israel, like for example Erdogan does, even if it's only words? Why that silence? It seems like they are hiding. They could become popular. When you're in power and you have money, you think you kind of own things, right? It creates arrogance, and you start to think you're the thing, right? Become detached, really. You surround yourself with people who like to tell you things not exactly as they are, but things that please you. Also, that's excluding the fact that these people are, some of them are actual puppets, right? But, not many of them will do anything really to threat even. Like I spoke about, like, just use your political tool, right? Use any diplomatic tool, use economic ties, use something against the governments who are supporting this genocide, right? You could have prevented it. It's scary to be in a position of so much power and not do anything. I mean, personally, at an individual level, the thought of not standing up against something like that is scary. Do you know why? Because it suggests you've gone astray somewhere. And there's nothing more scary than going astray, at least to me as a person. And how can these people live with themselves not standing up for what's right? And when you have power, the thought is extremely scary. Geopol said, I just remember there was a verse in the Quran, when someone brings to you news, verify it. Yeah. إن جاءكم فاسق بنبأ فتبينوا. And it continues, أن تصيبوا قوما بجهالة. So verify the information so that you won't make people ignorant. فتصبحوا على ما فعلتم نادمين. And then you regret what you have done. It's a very interesting verse. A question from Noor al-Alam. What is being done to unite Palestinians? News is that PLO-PM resigned. What's next? Why can't a World Peace Conference can be called by BRICS, OIC, Arab League, etc.? Because I think most people are engaged in the most essential and important thing to do, which is ending the genocide. End the genocide and then talk about the other stuff. I think people are trying to rush it too much with other things, and they're linking the peace treaty with Saudi Arabia to all of that. The priority is to stop the suffering. Stop the suffering. Stop the genocide. Stop this criminal state. And then talk about other stuff. There's time to talk about things after it, right? But the main thing is stop the genocide. And they can't agree on everything, all of the Arab states. But can't you agree on stopping the genocide? Some I'm sure they have a genuine intent in actually stopping it. But they're not doing enough. They're not doing enough to. Juliana Gracely, thank you very much. And anyone supporting, and good comments, sending supers as well. Let's go to Arcanarchist. Do you think they could have one state, two systems, like China and Macau or Hong Kong, with one federal government and Palestinian and Israel state government? Look, when you want to talk about a two-state solution, there's so many possibilities. Federal government, you can talk about different states. You can talk about a unified state with two separate authorities, right? There are things. The question is there a will, especially for the occupying powerful force? You need to have will from the powerful side, because the weak side, Palestinian side, they can have a will, but it can't be implemented because those who are in power are unable. The harsh reality is, with this situation, is when do you make it uncomfortable to Israel to a level where they think we need to have a solution? When do powers change? They get really uncomfortable. Very, very uncomfortable. How do they get uncomfortable? Very many ways. Okay? Is Israel uncomfortable to a level where it would reach a solution now? I don't think so. They need to be more uncomfortable, more secluded. There needs to be more embargo on them. They need to feel the hit properly from internationally. To think, hold on a second, we've reached a dead end. We no longer have America. We no longer have anyone. Do you know what? It's time for us to do something. And then they'll try and stretch it here and there. But first, they need to be uncomfortable. Make them uncomfortable. And then there are so many options to really reach a solution. Beverly West, how can I order a book? Get it for free. Go on my website, in my channel link. You can read it through the website, or you can, if you're on a desktop, download it from a desktop. I don't have a printed copy version yet. If I do, I'll let you know. But you can get it for free. That's my gift for you. A chocolate pudding. Thank you. Zaim, much love from the land of cedars and true freedom. Much love back to you and everyone else. Thank you. Okay. Let's see. If we have anything else. Okay. Last question. Angela Brody, our member. Mahmoud, are there any parts of Palestine at all where the people have any freedom and autonomy? Look, the people who, if you talk about freedom, like freedom from having occupation forces on your land directly, that was Gaza. But then there was a blockade. So they were being punished for that freedom. However, they probably felt some sort of liberty, even with that siege, not to justify it, or it's awful. But in terms of not being there, right? But still, they didn't enjoy freedom of movement because Israel restricted them from going and coming. Israel restricted things going out and in. They couldn't travel. They were living on not exactly everything that they need and stuff like that. Blockade. They didn't function as an independent entity with land, no matter how small they are. Even though you have much smaller entities with independence in the world, by the way. So no, unfortunately not. Hopefully we'll reach a stage where they will one day. But if you talk about historical Palestine, then unfortunately no. And let's end it there. We've been together for over 2 hours now. Thank you so much for everyone joining me and all of your comments and questions. Much love and peace to all of you. I will hopefully, after this video, I have the video that I told you about, by the way, because some of you were asking me about the religious background of the Palestinian resistance. So it wasn't something related with updates or anything, but rather a bit of a background as to the armed resistance movement, why they really started, a bit of ideological background. What does Islam have to do with it? A bit of history when it comes to this. So you can have a look at it after. I'm going to publish it probably later on tonight. I'm not sure if it's too late to publish it now, but I'll try and publish it. And apart from that, I'll hopefully see you tomorrow in the live stream. So thank you so much again. And I will see you. Enjoy the rest of your evening, morning, or night, depending on where you are. And I will see you in the next video. Take care.